All right, welcome to Hoops Tonight here at The Volume. Happy Friday, everybody. Coverage of the Western Conference Finals here at Hoops Tonight is brought to you by Chase Freedom Unlimited. How do you cash back? All right, just like we did in the last round, I have rewatched Game 1 between the Lakers and the Nuggets, learned a lot, dove into some statistical information. So I'm going to take 10 minutes or so here just to give you guys a little preview of Game 2 between the Lakers and the Nuggets. You guys know the drill before we get started. Subscribe to The Volume's YouTube channel so you don't miss any more of our videos. Follow me on Twitter at _JasonLT so you guys don't miss any show announcements. And if for whatever reason you guys miss one of these shows and you can't get back over to YouTube to finish, don't forget you can find them wherever you get your podcasts under Hoops Tonight. All right, let's talk some basketball. So I'm going to start with some statistical notes from the analytic platforms that I use. And then I'm going to just kind of go over some of the things that I saw on tape. I'm going to go from the perspective of each team. So at first I'm going to go with what I saw from the Lakers that they can do better. And then I'm going to go with what I saw from the Nuggets that I think they can do better. All right, so I talked a lot after last game about how transition defense was a huge problem for the Lakers. Definitely saw that manifest in the numbers, and they cleaned it up a little bit in the second half. As a matter of fact, the Nuggets logged 19 transition possessions in the first half to just 5 in the second half. Now, a couple of different things there that I saw on tape. First of all, they just ran better offense. It's a lot harder to get out in transition when you're taking the ball out of the net. Now, Jokic is really good at it. You'll see him see Anthony Davis make a shot, and he'll identify that he's falling down, and he'll grab it out of the net and quickly outlet and start sprinting down the floor. There are opportunities to push and transition on makes, but it's definitely harder to do. So running good offense, just taking care of the basketball and getting good shots is a great way to help your transition defense. And then also on tape, I just noticed that they just did a better job of sprinting back, better floor balance. So when I say floor balance, what that means is as the guy's driving to the basket, you always want to relocate, right? You have shooters relocating, finding soft spots, but you also want at least 2 bodies above the break on any attempt at the basket so that if there's a miss and your big guys are under the basket, you have guys that can pick up the ball in transition. They just did a much better job in the second half. Rebounding. Nuggets out-rebounded them 47-30. There's a 15-5 advantage in offensive rebounding. The Lakers were the more efficient offense in this game. They averaged 1.22 points per possession compared to 1.18 for Denver, but Denver logged 10 additional possessions. That's the difference in the game right there. And I'll talk a lot about it when we're talking on tape, but rebounding was the biggest thing that stood out to me on tape. It was atrocious early in the game, obviously, but there were some really bad ones late in the game as well. Every single Laker missed box outs in the first half. No one was safe. LeBron James and Anthony Davis weren't sharp. The guards weren't sharp. It was ugly. But then even down the stretch, both LeBron James and Anthony Davis missed pivotal box outs against Aaron Gordon. There was one with LeBron where he just didn't try to box anybody out. There was one where Anthony Davis was tied up with Aaron Gordon, and Aaron just kind of shoved him under the basket and went and got it. So they just need to, as a group, do a much better job ending possessions with defensive rebounds. That was a huge issue in this game for the Lakers. Shooting result. The Denver Nuggets averaged 1.5 points per spot-up possession in this game, which is outrageously good, compared to just 1.0 for the Lakers. Now, Denver was a slightly better spot-up team than the Lakers during the regular season. They were 11th in spot-up points per possession compared to 16th for the Lakers, but not as big of a difference as you saw in that particular game. So I do think as things kind of regress, both teams will end up around 1 point per possession in spot-up possessions in this over the course of the series. Denver definitely shot better in Game 1, and you just noticed that watching it. All those kickouts to KCP were going in. All those kickouts to Michael Porter Jr. were going in. They definitely shot the ball better than the Lakers did. Now, on tape, let's start with the Lakers. So I wrote down 4 specific things. 2 of them are the easy ones, right? Just do a better job boxing out and do a better job of sprinting back in transition, which they address a little bit in the second half on the transition front. But boxing out was a huge issue throughout the game they got to get better at. So I already talked about that earlier. I won't get any further into it. The other 2 things, semi-transition drives. So there were several possessions, particularly in the first half, where guys are running back in transition. Now, what I call semi-transition is all 10 players are in the front court, but their defense is not set yet. So guys are still kind of backpedaling or walking backwards. No one's in their actual shell drill position yet. So people are back, just not completely set. A lot of times, Bruce Brown in particular was thriving in this environment. Aaron Gordon had some success here as well. But when Anthony Davis was guarding Nikola Jokic and back in transition, but Jokic is off the ball, like 27, 28 feet from the basket, AD would just kind of be standing, looking over his shoulders between the foul line and the three-point line, pretty much there at the top of the key. And since he's so far up, when Bruce Brown just decides to hit the Jets on Lonnie Walker or just hit the Jets on D'Angelo Russell, AD's out of position to contest those shots. Now, the way that the adjustment there is having Anthony Davis, when he gets back in transition, rather than getting back to Jokic, get back to the semicircle. And then from there, if Jokic gets the basketball or gets involved in an action, then you can go to wherever your scheme position is, which is a little bit more up high, higher towards the level of the screen, right? But in possessions where Bruce Brown has the basketball and Jokic is just trailing the play, you have to be more willing to concede a late contest three to Jokic in a trailing position than a wide open layup for a better athlete in Bruce Brown. So I thought that just in general, getting out of that semi-transition into their set defense quicker, which is basically what I'm saying, that will go a long way towards helping the Lakers in the transition defense issues. They did a much better job. I'm not going to talk about this as an adjustment because they kind of adjusted it during the game, but just chasing over the top of screens as opposed to going underneath screens. We talked about that last night. I won't get any further into it. And last but not least, Anthony Davis getting too connected to Jokic's body. So we're going to talk about this in a little bit because the Rui on Jokic adjustment was a little bit overstated. I actually only noticed 3 possessions in that fourth quarter where I thought Rui bothered him. There was the play where Jokic spun off of him and shot the floater and AD blocked it. There was another play where he kind of spun off of Rui, shot a floater over Anthony Davis, but missed it short on the rim. And then there was the play where Aaron Gordon, as AD stepped up, sealed LeBron on the inside, and LeBron kind of denied over the top, and Jokic tried to throw a left-handed hook pass to him underneath the basket, and it got fumbled out of bounds. There was a lot of talk surrounding that Rui adjustment, and don't get me wrong, it's something I expect the Lakers to do. I expect to see a little LeBron James on Nikola Jokic. I also think that the Nuggets have adjustments for it. Michael Porter Jr. referenced this after the game, and a lot of Nuggets players kind of made reference to it over the course of their post-game interviews, but it's pretty much just move Aaron Gordon out of the dunker spot, right? Like, and we'll talk a little bit more about that when we get to the Nuggets adjustments, but just getting him into a position where AD has to get a defensive 3 seconds if he's going to linger in the paint behind Rui Hachimura, right? But the point is that Rui Hachimura didn't have that big of an impact, so Anthony Davis is going to have to still spend a good amount of the series on Nikola Jokic. And even in that fourth quarter, when the story was Rui on Jokic, Anthony Davis still spent a good portion of that quarter in the middle of those possessions guarding Nikola Jokic. So Anthony Davis, and what did I tell you guys if you remember in the series preview? I told you guys that I expected Jokic to have a lot of success against Anthony Davis early in the series. Why? Because Jokic is just a freaking beast, right? He's a totally different type of matchup than what Anthony Davis has been dealing with defensively, basically for the last 3.5 months, right? So much of it has been just him roaming off the ball, covering in pick and roll, dealing with pull-up shooters at the level of the screen, protecting the rim, closing out possessions with defensive rebounds. This is like, no. You're head-to-head with the best center in the league, potentially, and you have to outplay him one-on-one, right, in a lot of different ways. And so Jokic is just such a different type of matchup there, and he's so crafty and unique and different in his approach. I expected him, like I said in the series preview, to have a lot of success against AD early in the series. The question is, can AD, with his physical tools and with his basketball IQ and his defensive IQ, can he figure out how to solve Nikola Jokic? Now, one of the specific things I noticed on tape that caused him problems, particularly in the first half, and again, as a team, the Lakers were way better defensively in the second half. We'll get to that in a minute. But in that first half, he was getting too connected to Jokic's body. So again, when you are a defensive player, you need to build your strategy based on what your advantage is, right? Or understanding what the offensive player's advantage is, right? So if you're the better athlete and you're bigger, stronger, more athletic, right? Which Anthony Davis is longer, and he probably moves better than Nikola Jokic to some extent, but he's not bigger. Like, Jokic absolutely has a physical advantage over AD in terms of overall strength and size, right? So when you as the defender have the strength and size advantage and athleticism advantage, you want to press up on a defender, Why? Because any sort of physical confrontation or contact that happens as part of that possession benefits you in your ability to hold that player in his spot, right? And then even if you do get beat off the dribble, you have the athleticism to recover, typically. Now, if you don't have a size and strength or physical advantage, if you're giving advantage there, you want to give space. Why? Because in that position, you need to beat them to the spot as they're making a move and try to force them to shoot over the top. With Anthony Davis in particular, that's the best strategy for him, in large part because he does have a length advantage over Nikola Jokic. So he's at his best when he stays disconnected from Jokic, forces Jokic to come at him, absorbs the blow, and then goes up to defend the shot. And he actually had a block on Jokic in the first half on a hook shot in that situation. But there were two plays, particularly in the first half, where Jokic beat Anthony Davis in ISO or post-ups, where he got all the way to the rim. One for a dunk, and the other where he kind of went with his left hand and kind of dropped it in the rim that kind of looked like a dunk. And on both of them, Jokic started like 15 feet from the rim. And AD was pressed all the way up on him and literally leaning on him. Now, again, Jokic is the stronger player. On the baseline spin dunk, all Jokic did on the catch is just pivot and turn. And he's so much stronger than AD that when he pivots and turns with that left elbow, AD is going to get sealed by it, and it's going to be a straight line drive to the basket for a dunk. Same thing on that drive towards the middle with the lefty drop in, right? If AD lets Jokic catch at 15 feet and gives him a little bit of space, if he turns and shoots, you contest with where your length can be an advantage. If he drives at you, you have time to slide and absorb that contact in the center of your chest because you're the quicker player and force Nikola Jokic to shoot over the top. Again, you're not going to stop Nikola Jokic. That's not true for any offensive player in the league. You're not going to stop Steph. You're not going to stop Jokic. You're not going to stop LeBron. All you can do is try to make it more difficult on them, right? And for Anthony Davis, he has to find a path over the course of the series to make things more difficult for Anthony Davis. I talked about this on the show last night, but I'd like to see the Lakers do a lot less doubling when AD's there on an island and put the onus on Anthony Davis to figure out how to drop Jokic's efficiency by kind of solving him defensively. Not entirely, but enough to slow him down. So getting disconnected from Jokic's body, I think, is the advantage for Anthony Davis. And that extends even further to those transition defense possessions. Don't be attached to Jokic. Be at the rim as much as possible. And then when you need to come out for your coverages, then you can do so. All right, let's move on to the Nuggets. So I talked a lot last night or after game one about the Lakers' defensive effort, right? And I have a lot of Nuggets fans, and generally I've seen this in every series, where when I talk about the Lakers giving poor effort, they're like, oh, sure, it's all the Lakers' poor effort. It's not anything the Nuggets are doing, and that defeats the purpose of what I'm trying to say. Like, of course, the offense is executing to a certain extent, and their talent level is carrying them. But the Lakers are, in my opinion, the best defensive team in this league right now. Certainly the best defensive team remaining. And they're certainly capable of defending a hell of a lot better than they did in the first half of that game. And specifically, this Laker team has followed a consistent trend with oscillating effort. That's why it was a blowout in game one against Memphis and a blowout in game one against the Warriors until that late comeback that the Warriors had. And then they punted game two in both series. And then they blew them out in game three in both series. And then game four was super close in both series. And then they punted game five in both series. And then they blew them out in game six in both series. That is literally the rhythm and flow of the way that the Lakers engage themselves. They broke away from that trend with their effort in the first half of this game. But again, like as I always say, the Lakers are like my blind spot as an analyst, right? Because the one player I have like an emotional attachment to from when I was a kid is LeBron James. And so I root for whatever team LeBron James is on. That's like the one blind spot that I have. So in the live viewing, I'm super annoyed about the Lakers' effort, but I'm not paying super close attention to the Nuggets' effort. Well, on film, as bad as the Lakers were in the first half defensively with their effort, both in transition and in the half court, the Nuggets were every bit as disengaged in the second half last night. So as we look at the box score and we look at how efficient the Lakers were in the second half and we look at that wild comeback, I absolutely think the Nuggets are capable of defending a hell of a lot better than they did in that second half. It was definitely a tale of two scripts. bad Laker effort and hellacious Denver effort in the first half, and then bad Denver effort with hellacious Laker effort in the second half. What does that mean to me? That means that as we go into game 2, I expect both teams to bring a more consistent defensive effort. I expect both teams to get ripped fresh new ones in their film session for all of the missed box outs, all of the missed rotations, all of the bad point of attack defense. And I expect game 2 to be a lower scoring slugfest rather than both teams shooting in the mid-50s from the field and the mid-40s from 3. I expect both teams to shoot in the mid-40s from the field and the mid-30s from 3 in this game and expect it to be much more low scoring. So that's a big thing that I learned on film. For being a monumentally important Western Conference Finals game, both teams had extended stretches of poor defensive effort. So that's a big adjustment for the Nuggets. Just play harder than you did in the second half. Kentavious Caldwell-Pope on Austin Reeves. So I actually tweeted a link to a video to this on my Twitter feed. So go to @_JasonLT and you'll see the exact clip I'm talking about. But you guys might remember that sequence there in the late fourth quarter where Austin Reeves kept setting ghost screens as LeBron James was trying to pick on Jamal Murray. And Jamal was really slow to recover. And Austin Reeves was hitting movement threes, drifting to his left on the left wing, right? So one of the adjustments that Denver made, and I actually talked about this in the post-game show, but Denver actually, on my rewatch, I noticed Denver actually made this adjustment in the game. On one of the final possessions, just under 2 minutes left, Jamal Murray, as they're walking across half court, looks over at KCP and goes, "You guard Austin, I'll guard Dennis," right? Like I talked about in the post-game show, Dennis is the guy Denver's going to want in that screen because he's much slower with his release and generally just can't shoot movement threes. So LeBron runs that same ghost screen with Dennis Schroeder to try to pick on Jamal Murray. Dennis ends up catching kind of in the high part of the right corner. Jamal Murray has plenty of time to react because Dennis Schroeder has got such a slow release. Dennis ends up beating him to the baseline with a drive, and it's like kick, and Austin Reeves ends up getting a wide open 3 anyway on the left wing. But if you're Denver, you give yourself a better chance of containing Dennis Schroeder with Jamal Murray on an island than you do with giving wide open 3s to Austin Reeves or leaving Jamal Murray on LeBron James. So it's certainly a worthwhile adjustment. And then the inevitable counter you'll get from the Lakers there is LeBron will start to call Kentavious Caldwell-Pope into the action, but he's much better at defending those hedge and recover situations. So it's just a better matchup for Denver to leave KCP on Austin Reeves. Plus, to be honest with you, Austin Reeves is, in my opinion, the third best player on the Lakers and the best guard. So it just makes more sense to have Kentavious Caldwell-Pope on Reeves regardless of circumstance. So a little bit on the Rui on Jokic thing. Like I said, the only 3 possessions where they bothered him were the blocked floater, the missed floater, and the turnover to Aaron Gordon underneath the basket. Anthony Davis actually spent a good amount of time on Nikola Jokic in that fourth quarter, so I don't think this is like the end-all, be-all adjustment. However, the thing that they have to do is just take Aaron Gordon and move him further away from the basket. So on the possessions where Rui Hachimura is guarding Nikola Jokic, if Aaron Gordon is in the dunker spot, Anthony Davis can legally guard him while being underneath the basket, right? Whereas if you just simply put Aaron Gordon in the corner and go with more traditional 4-out spacing, now Anthony Davis has to start outside the block, right? And so Jokic can theoretically work to the opposite side of the key area and make moves on Rui, knowing that Anthony Davis is going to be much later with his contest. So that's a big one there. Also, using Aaron Gordon in different ways off the ball, right? So posting up Jokic on the left block. If Anthony Davis is going to ignore him and kind of linger around the paint, you just have Aaron Gordon go run like a quick flare screen for Kentavious Caldwell-Pope for a movement 3 or for Jamal Murray or something along those lines. Pretty much anything other than putting him in the dunker spot. It's too easy for the Lakers to have Anthony Davis just abandon him and step up. And LeBron James is so damn big and strong that when he digs down to take away that drop-off pass to Gordon, he doesn't really have the same opportunity to quick grab and finish there the way he does against other teams. And then lastly, I talked about that after the game in game 1, just trying to have Nikola Jokic target shots that he knows he can make more close to the semicircle rather than trying to go to the basket. So the block that Anthony Davis had late and then the missed floater over Rui late were both headed towards the rim. Rui's pressuring, Jokic is spinning off of him and trying to finish towards the rim. If I was Nikola Jokic there, I would just try to instead of trying to get past Rui, keep him trapped on my backside, bump him off, and take those little short push shots and turnarounds that I take further from the rim, about 8-9 feet, which he's been making it like 70% all season. And Anthony Davis can actually bother those shots a little bit. Rui Hachimura cannot, and he's certainly not going to bother them when he's standing underneath the rim. So those are the ways that I would counter the Rui Hachimura assignment. Again, like I expect in game 2, much more low-scoring game. I think both defenses will play much better. I think both teams will shoot much worse. I think it's going to be a really close game, and I'm going with the Lakers to win game 2 in a clutch situation to steal home court. I do not feel great about it, to be clear. I think both of these teams are super evenly matched. I thought the Laker defense was a little shell-shocked in that game, although I do believe they'll be better over the course of the series. And in my opinion, whoever wins game 2 is in the driver's seat to win this series by a significant margin. If Denver goes up 2-0, I don't think the Lakers can overcome that and win 4 out of 5. And if the Lakers steal home court and are the first team to win in Denver in this postseason run, I think that's a big tell for them. And given the way that their defense is fueled by their home crowd and how consistent that can be on a night-to-night basis, I think it's actually going to be pretty hard for Denver to win in LA as well. So vitally important and pivotal game 2. Very, very excited. I will be here to break it down with you guys live on AMP after the final buzzer later tonight.